All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Donna, and I am the Supplier Performance Manager for Expedia Cruises Team Friesen. So a little bit about Expedia Cruises Team Friesen. The lovely couple you see on your screen is Sean and Tammy Friesen, and they bought their first center in 2007, 17 years ago. We have a team of, which is actually not quite accurate because we're constantly adding, but when this was written, 375 consultants. We're probably closer to 400 now, from Kenora to North Bay to Windsor to Toronto. So we're all over Ontario. 13, soon to be 16 storefronts across Ontario. So we are the largest multi-unit franchise in North America. So we will take care of over 30,000 passengers in 2024. It's crazy. So Ian, I'll get you to switch the slide for me. So this is our locations. So our very first one was Thunder Bay. And now we have Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury, North Bay, Barrie, which is our brand new store. Burlington, we have 2 locations, Hamilton and Castor Dundas. Woodstock, Chatham, which is not quite ready to be open, but it's very close. Sarnia and Windsor. And then later at the end of this year, beginning of next year, we will have St. Thomas and Aurelia. So definitely a lot of stores. And so why do you want to book with us? That's always a big question for everybody, of course. So we have a team of over, well, pretty much now 400 people. So between all of us, no matter who you're working with, they may not have been everywhere, but our team has been everywhere. So we have traveled everywhere pretty much, I promise you. And if not, we have booked people who have gone there. We are amazing, passionate travelers. Again, even just thinking of the office I come from, which is Sudbury, there is pretty much nowhere that we haven't been or haven't booked. In fact, I'm just thinking of next month, everybody's traveling. So very, very passionate about that. Our travel suppliers will never sell direct for less than what we sell. Absolutely. They want to book with us. They want us to sell them. So we usually get the best deals. And our mission is to help create memories and fulfill dreams. We are in that business. We want to make everybody's dreams come true. And this is some of our stores, some of all the different locations across the Ontario. Some of the great ships on there. Look at that. That is not the store I come from in Sudbury. We do not have a beautiful ship in front of ours. And one more slide in, and there we go. So this is some of our team. Again, we have some great pictures. Some of us, and again, you see like how many of these, there's at least 4 though to 6 that we're traveling. One is our great Woodstock office in front of their beautiful map. And then the one at the bottom is Hamilton. So, and some of the team there. So again, a lot of us out there, we love to travel. As you can see from the pictures, you see all our pictures on different ships. So absolutely. And I think the next slide is yes. So tonight, I just want to thank everybody. Oh, I apologize. Let me get these people in here. Thank everybody for coming out. It's a beautiful night. So thank you for taking the time. We are going to see an amazing presentation. We are being joined by Ian from Hurtigruten. And it is, I watched some of these slides earlier when we were going through it. And I have to say, like, just makes you want to sign up tomorrow. As you can see from the very first slide, like, look at that cute penguin. So Ian, I'm going to pass it off to you. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And
Thank
guys,
you.
before I hand it completely over, if you have questions throughout, we do have the chat available, so you can type it out at any time. And at the end, we'll go back and look at any of those questions. But if you think of something and you don't want to do in the chat or you can't, that's fine too. Just reach out to your consultant or to the store closest to you. So Ian, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you, yes, all for coming out today to learn a bit more about HX Hurtigruten Expeditions, where we go, why we go there, how we do it, and all of that. Just to go back a couple slides, and that the amount of experience that comes with that robust of a staff is just immeasurable. So hopefully you like what you see today and you're interested in experiencing HX Hurtigruten Expeditions, and the best way to do that is absolutely to book with one of the Team Friesen Expedia locations. So I am with HX, where we like to change the world, the way you see the world. My name is Ian Kivel. I'm the Business Development Manager for Hurtigruten Expeditions, which you will see written as HX. So we are part of the larger group of companies called the Hurtigruten Group. And so part of the business does Hurtigruten Norway, and they do mainland Norway sailings. And we do at Hurtigruten Expeditions everything else. So we do Svalbard, the little group of islands way far up north in Norway. We do Antarctica, Galapagos. Oh, I'll show you a map. The list goes on and on and on. But in case you haven't heard of us, there's 3 points that kind of summarize what we do and how we do it and who we are. The first is that we're experts in expedition since 1896. So almost 130 years of experience bringing tourists all over the world, sometimes to the most remote destinations you could possibly think of. And in some cases, in some quite challenging waters. So we've got 130 years of experience. And I'll go more into why each of these things are important in a little bit. The second is that we're made for curious travelers. This is a very eye-opening educational type of experience. Because we're going to these remote locations, it's places that not everyone goes. So we have some experts to bring you there and to teach you all about it. And the last, and certainly not least, point is that we're leaders in mindful adventure, which regards sustainability. So everything we do, whether it's designing the itineraries or the ships themselves or back-end operations, we always have sustainability in mind, not just environmental sustainability, because we are going to quite delicate regions of the world, but also how do we affect the local populations? How do we affect the local wildlife? How do we keep everything just as pristine as it was when we got there? It's a big, big, big focus of ours. But just to harken back for one moment to 1896, this is, now mind you, our vessels have changed, our seacraft have changed, but this is way up north in that group of islands in northern Norway called Svalbard. And if you look carefully, you can see somebody out in a kayak, and we actually still do that. So we will bring you back up to those same destinations, but in addition to all sorts of new ones that we've started going to since 1896. But just a nice little picture from the largest island up in that collection of islands called Spitsbergen. So before we really start, I wanted to show you a quick video to just kind of give you a feeling of what it's like on our trips.
We were born in a time of great change, when Norwegian explorers were changing our view of the world. In 1896, we set out on our great journey, driven by curiosity to sail in the wake of giants, changing our horizons from Norway to all points of the compass, where polar bears roam, penguins dance, and albatrosses float above archipelagos. We changed course, and we changed courses. We changed coats and boats, changing the ways you can discover and learn, the way you can see, feel, and hear the world around you, changing the lives of those who share our journey, with the help of those who have changed ours. We've taken people further and deeper into a world of wonder. And along the way, we changed the way we sail for everyone. But some things will never change. Powered by our curiosity, always exploring, and forever inspired to protect our home. We do all this for one purpose: to change the way you see the world.
All right. So it just gives you an idea where we go, how do we do it? And if you're anything like me, also puts about 10 different destinations on my bucket list every time I see it. So going back to those 3 main points, because I know a lot of people are unfamiliar with who HX is. So looking at those a little bit more in depth, the experts in expeditions since 1896, there's a few different things in here, but I'd like to call out that we're now the largest operator by capacity in expedition cruising. So we send the most passengers out of any expedition cruise operator. With that comes experience, of course, and trust. And we're now sailing to over 250 destinations in over 30 different countries. But most importantly, we have purpose-built ships. We spend a lot of time in polar regions, down in Antarctica and up in the far Arctic. And so we have ships that are specifically built for that, whether that's an extra strong hull so that we can drive into ice without it being a problem, or in fact, I'll get into the purpose-built ships as we move through, because all of these 3 points kind of relate to each other. So that's point 1. I'll get back to the purpose-built ships. Remember that point 2 is that we're made for curious travelers. If you take a look at this picture, this is our science lab. We do have a science lab on board every one of our ships, and we have scientists on board to enhance the guest experience. So we have everything from marine and wildlife biologists to social anthropologists, oceanographers, archaeologists, ornithologists, paleontologists, glaciologists, every kind of ologist you can possibly imagine we have on board our ships working for us. But the cool thing is that we also have scientists on board who are not working for us because, for example, people work and live on Antarctica. Scientists work at outposts doing scientific research for global projects, but they can't get to work. They can't just drive to Antarctica because there's no highway. So what they've asked us is, could you drive me to work? Can you pick me up in Argentina and drop me off in Antarctica for my 6 months or however long it is contract? And we said, of course, welcome aboard. All we do is we ask that you share your research, you share your knowledge, do some lectures for our guests. And so you're really getting true professionals on board who are helping you use all of this equipment that you see in this picture. Over 1,000 nights a year collectively between all of our ships and all of our scientists that we host on board. So it's a big, big focus of ours. And lastly, leaders in mindful adventure. Again, this is the sustainability component of it. So we were kind of the trailblazers when it came to the cruise industry and mindful adventure. We banned the use of heavy fuel oils in 2008, eliminated single-use plastics in 2018. The ship that you see in the bottom there, that is one of 5 ships in our fleet. 2 of the ships in our fleet are both hybrid battery powered, and they were both named the world's most sustainable cruise ship across all sectors, so ocean, river, and expedition. So really big focus for us. But again, it's not just about the environment and the impact we have on that. It also comes down to the communities and the wildlife that interact with those communities. And we want to make sure that we're doing that properly. So every time we go to a new destination, and as we continue to go to the ones that we're already visiting, we actually meet with the locals to make sure that how we're enjoying their destination is the best way they want us to. So we actually talk to the people on shore and say, how many sailings would you like us to have? When we go on land, what would you like us to do? How would you like us to do it? We're very much aware that we're a guest in that area and that we want to keep, like I said, these pristine locations just as pristine as when we found them. But where do we go? I mentioned a couple destinations already. Our most popular destination, where do we send the most people? Antarctica. Number 2 is Galapagos. But aside from those regions, we go everywhere where you can see that there's a black outline. So in the winter, I don't know if you live where I live, but I wouldn't call this winter. Outside today, it was 20-something degrees. But in the Canadian winter, that's when it's Antarctic sailing season. So currently we have 3 ships down in Antarctica. And then in the summer our summer is when we go up north. So that's when you'll get to the British Isles, Iceland, Svalbard, Greenland, Alaska. And if you can see my mouse going across northern Canada through all those islands up in the territories, we call that the Northwest Passage. And so that goes in the summer. So lots of different itineraries. And as those polar seasons rotate, we relocate all of those ships, and then that's when you can visit those locations in between. So there's lots of opportunity. Speaking of the ships themselves, they are a perfect balance of expedition, so adventure and discovery, onboard comfort and sustainability. This is the Fridtjof Nansen, one of the two sustainable sister ships, those two ships that I mentioned that were voted the world's most sustainable cruise ship. All of these tiny little things that are way too small for you to read on a presentation on a tiny computer screen that you're probably watching on. It shows why, the reasons why that ship won that title. So a few that relate to the purpose-built ships are on here: the hybrid battery-powered operations, the extra strong hull for ice class, it's called. They're ice class certified ships. So all sorts of different points as to why that ended up being the world's most sustainable cruise ship. But like I mentioned, there are two. So the two pictures on top, one is called the Fridtjof Nansen, one is called the Roald Amundsen. Those are the two sister ships. They're very much identical in most ways, and they're both the hybrid battery-powered ships. The bottom right, that's called the MS Santa Cruz 2. She's the only one in the fleet that's not ice class certified. And there's a good reason for that. It's because she sits at the equator and doesn't move. She only does Galapagos Islands. So Galapagos is a really big focus for us. It's a really exciting destination, and that's where you're going to find Santa Cruz 2. Otherwise, we've got the MS Fram on the bottom left, and in the bottom middle, you've got MS Spitsbergen, both also ice class rated. So we operate those in the polar regions as well. If you're wondering, because it's hard to tell by pictures really, how big these ships are, we've got the Santa Cruz is the smallest, 50 cabins, 90 guests in maximum. And at the top, we have Fridtjof Nansen and Roald Amundsen. Those are the biggest, and they can hold up to 530. It is worth mentioning in Antarctica that if a ship has more than 500, you're not allowed to go on land. So the big ocean cruisers, they'll go up to Antarctica and you can take a nice picture, but you're not going to get onto the continent itself. Now, I mentioned that Nansen and Amundsen hold 530 maximum guests. For the Antarctic sailings, we limit every sailing at 500, so we can ensure that those experiences can still be had, so everybody can still do landings on Antarctica. So that's our fleet at a glance. But what's happening on board the ships? So on any of our ships, you'll have a combination of these restaurants. And we'll talk about each of these because it's really interesting how they go back and tie in with the history of the company. Again, 1896, purpose-built ships, everything's all interconnected. So this is Aune. It's a Norwegian company. So this is why some of the ships' names are a little long and maybe complicated to pronounce. This one is a short name and easier to pronounce, Aune. This is the main restaurant. Beautiful floor-to-ceiling windows. This is where you're going to have your breakfast, lunch, and dinner services. So this is the main dining space. It's a last name of a ship chandler. Back in the day, like way back in the day, a chandler is a store that sells services and equipment for ships. And the person who worked there, last name was Aune. So that's our little connection there. This is where you're going to have, like I said, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Beer and wine service is included during those meal times, so not at an extra charge. It is complimentary. This is Lindstrom. This is our specialty fine dining restaurant. Again, someone's last name. And this person was the chef on board the original 1896 expedition ship. And if you took the entire list of crew from that sailing, the chef, whose last name was Lindstrom, his job description said that he's the most important person in the entire crew because it was through food that he kept up the spirits of everyone. And of course, times have changed. The restaurant is much more refined, and the food is, I'm sure, a lot less rustic. But we wanted to honor his memory and call the fine dining restaurant Lindstrom. So this is our specialty dining restaurant, and it's included for people who are staying in suites, but a small extra charge for people who are not staying in suites. That extra charge is currently 25 euros. I'm sure I spent more than that recently on a dinner that I went out to here in Canada, so it's really reasonable when you think of the quality and just the caliber of the food you're getting here. So we've got Auna, main dining room, Lindstrom, fine dining. This one is called Fredheim, the last of our eateries. It's called Fredheim. It's again somebody's last name, but it it doesn't mean free time, but that's how I remember it, because this restaurant, it doesn't need to be breakfast, lunch, or dinner time. You just show up and order a meal whenever you want to during the day. So it doesn't mean free time in Norwegian, but that's how I remember it. It's free time. It's called Fredheim. And lastly, again, with carrying on with the theme of these beautiful, huge windows, basically turning an observation deck into a restaurant or a bar. This is the Explorer Bar. This is where you're going to have your social activities. It's sometimes turns into a lecture hall, but this is where you can unwind after a nice day of exploring these incredible, incredible destinations. I mentioned we are a Norwegian company. So as we go through and we see different pictures from the onboard experience, you'll notice it's very natural. So we've got natural wood accents, we've got lots of natural light. It's very warm and airy and spacious with simple design in terms of the furniture. So couple onboard pictures. This is the suites on board those sister ships. Very spacious, very beautiful. And you can see this from one view and the same suite from a different view here. Each of those suites, there are 6 on each ship. They have their own private outdoor hot tub. So just absolutely incredible experience. Otherwise, we've got some other cabins, a variety of different types of cabins that you can see here, but the theme continues. Lots of simple furniture, beautiful, comforting, natural sort of accents. If you don't have the feeling that you need to splurge on a suite and get your own private hot tub, there are public hot tubs on each of the ships as well. So this is the aft, or the back of the ship, Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen, where you've got 2 public hot tubs and an infinity pool. So depending where you are in this world, you may or may not use the infinity pool because I don't think it's heated very much. But otherwise, the hot tubs are always busy, as you can see in this picture. People enjoying the hot tub, but if you look carefully behind them, you've got people in parkas because visibly they are in a polar region. So depending on where you are in the world, you may like to get into that hot tub, enjoy the outdoor experience. Elsewhere on board, we have our wellness center where you can get your massage and facial treatments, and you can sit in the beautiful sauna as well. It might be a bit difficult to see because of the brightness, but on the left, those are again, floor to ceiling windows. So just another wonderful experience waiting to be had is sitting in this beautiful sauna, just taking in that nice heat, but looking outside and watching icebergs float by. It's really special. But what makes an expedition cruise what it's called? Why is it called an expedition cruise? Why is it not an ocean cruise? Because we're sailing on the oceans. Lots of people, when you talk about cruising, they tend to think of ocean or river, and that's the only 2 options. But expedition cruise is its own sector. It is growing. It's really becoming quite popular. There's a lot of demand. So why is it an expedition cruise? It's the actual expeditions. It's going off of the ship. It's going into these small, what are called RIBs, rubber inflatable boats. Too hard to say, so we just call them zodiacs. It's going into these zodiacs and exploring the destinations in that kind of way. You can see, we'll look at a better picture of the zodiac in a minute, but top left picture, they're in a zodiac. You've got 10 passengers, 1 expedition leader. And they're about to go out, whether that's to land or even just to do what they call a wildlife or an iceberg safari, where they're going to be taking their Zodiac around and going to spot whales or going up to icebergs and so on. But you can also do landings, and that's when you go in these Zodiacs as well. And you're with your expedition team. The expedition team they are professionals. They are so experienced. They are there to tell you how to enjoy the destination before you get on land and as you're on land, even after. They'll be in that lounge that we saw waiting to talk to you about your experience that you had that day. Little tips like when you are in Antarctica, for example, of course, there are penguins there, and the penguins have made their own highways. We call them penguin highways because they take the same trail every day. All of the penguins, they take the same trail. And so they create this sort of ditch, and they follow that ditch to where they're going. So the expedition leader, for example, will tell you, don't step on that penguin highway because they're used to their own footprints, of course. But could you even imagine, we've all seen how clumsy penguins are. If the one penguin up at the top of the hill trips and falls over a human finger footprint, just a domino effect you can imagine, and suddenly there's hundreds of penguins in the sea that didn't want to be there. So very graceful creatures in the water, but not so much on land. But anyway, that's why the expedition leader is there, to tell you the tips and tricks and how to enjoy the area that you might be in, but responsibly. Here is Roald Amundsen. This actually is in Misty Fjords in National Monument, they call it, which is sort of like a national park in Alaska. And we'll take a closer look at that expedition launch area that you can see on the lower side of the ship there. Otherwise, a couple pictures first, because I find I really like pictures. So Alaska, Svalbard, Greenland, Antarctica, different destinations that we're going. Antarctica again, because it's really exciting. British Isles, South America, Iceland, Galapagos, huge focus for us there. Cape Verde, Norway, Patagonia, all sorts of destinations that you can get to with HX. But more specifically, let's take a look at an itinerary. I just mentioned a couple of times that Galapagos is a big focus. The main attraction there, and you might not think of it right away with expedition cruising, is family travel. Big focus on families here. We're the only expedition cruise line in the area that has triple rooms that connect with double rooms. So families of 5 can finally go on a trip without making a big fuss out of it. Because I know it can be kind of difficult at times. Families can get 50% off of the kids as well. And right now, I was going to save it to the end, but I'm too excited. We have a buy one, get one free special going on with Galapagos right now. So put one person in the cabin, that second adult goes free. So really exciting stuff going on right now with Galapagos. This is our 9-day program. So 9 days, 8 nights. It's called In Darwin's Footsteps. This will take you to the East Galapagos Islands. We have one that's called the 9 Best Isles that does the West and the North. And the really special thing about Galapagos Islands is that depending on what island you're going to, you'll see different wildlife. And that wildlife is not scared of people because they were never taught to be scared. They don't have any large predators on Galapagos Islands. And for a really long time, people were not interested in the islands because they have well, of course, they've got natural resources, but not the kind that humans could harvest and take advantage of. So they would look at that island and be like, oh, nothing there's for us. So because of that, the animals have never been scared of people. So they are not shy. There is a rule that you have to stay a certain amount of feet away. I think it's 6 feet or something like that away from one type of animal. But the guides are there to tell you all those things. But if they come up to you, that's a different story. They don't know the rules. And that does happen. This is well, you can see our vessel at the back there. That's Santa Cruz 2. This is off the coast of Santa Fe Island in Galapagos. But in terms of very friendly animals, here's 2 of our guests kayaking. And you've got the sea lion just coming up to say hello. This is off of San Cristobal Island in Galapagos. And just to show you how close wildlife gets in this destination, here's a whale jumping in the Sea of Eden Islet, also in Galapagos, of course. So big, just so much attraction to things to see and do in Galapagos. It's just incredible. So we have 6, 8, and 10 night programs. So that would end up being 7, 9, and 11 days, depending on how much time you might have. I should mention, actually, excuse me while I go back, when you see these maps, the airplanes in these pictures, that means that those flights are included in the cost of the cruise. So in this case, you would fly, or of course your Expedia advisor is going to get you down to Quito, which is the capital city of Ecuador. That's done separately, but then the cost of the cruise will include your airfare to get to Galapagos. You do the cruise, airfare to get back to Quito, and then you'd fly home from there. So now we look at our most popular destination by passenger count, Antarctica. Big, big, big on lots of people's bucket lists. It's the 7th, it's the last continent. It's hard to get to, but it's super rewarding, and it's growing in popularity, and we've got 3 ships to take you there. So this is our itinerary called Highlights of Antarctica. It's a 12-day program, starts at about $8,100 US. And this is where we've got our 2 sister ships and the Fram. So the Fram is at about 230 passengers maximum, just as a reference, as the other 2 were 530. So we've got different options for you there. In this case, you'd fly into Buenos Aires. And then again, the cost of the cruise includes your flight down to Ushuaia in southern Argentina. We would pick you up there, and you'd sail across the Drake Passage, get to Antarctica, and then again, sail back to Ushuaia. Your flight back to Buenos Aires is included. And on a side note, Buenos Aires is a fantastic city. Quite loved it there too. Sometimes people who maybe have already cruised, whether that's ocean or river, or maybe even expedition, but not to Antarctica, they think to themselves, will I be bored? I'm used to a ship that's got 3,000, maybe more people. There's no theater. What am I going to do? There's no casino. What am I going to do? Let's take a look at a typical day in Antarctica with HX Hurtigruten Expeditions. So we're waking up, we're in a harbor in Antarctica, ready to explore. It's 8:30, we're having some breakfast. At 9:30, we're going to be in the expedition launch area of the ship, where your expedition leader is going to be telling you about, like I said earlier, how to experience the destination properly, what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be seeing. Maybe you're going to be joining the science boat. There's a few zodiacs that might be dedicated as science boats, depending on how many people want to get that involved. And you'll go out and you'll collect samples from the water and come back on board and look at them under the microscopes and stuff and contribute to the research that they're doing. So maybe you're in that boat and you're going to learn all about how to do that. That's happening at 9:30. At 10, what we're going to do in our zodiac, because we're all traveling together today, we're going to go to a Gentoo penguin colony. Check out a penguin colony, which might be the ones up in the top left that you can see. We'll take a closer look at them in a moment. So most people, you can spend as much time as you'd like on land. Most people we find, it's about 45 minutes to an hour. They take their pictures, they do their hiking, whatever, snowshoeing, whatever it might be that they're doing. And then it's about 45 minutes to an hour that they'd like to spend. But again, it's flexible. So not really a hard timeline. But here, for the purposes of staying organized, at 12 o'clock, we'll be back on board and we're going to have a lecture on the race. It's called the Race to the Pole. It was the first person to get to South Pole back in the day. One of the people involved was Roald Amundsen, the man who was the explorer and who our ship is named after. The other one was Robert Falcon Scott. And I'd like to know if anyone knows who made it first. Maybe you can put it in the chat and we'll come back to it after. At 1 o'clock, we're going to have our casual lunch at Fredheim, free time, because we want to be flexible and be able to walk in at any point and just order a meal. 2:30, we're going to go back off the ship. We're going to choose between an iceberg and a whale safari with tender boats, or we're going to go kayaking, or we're going to go snowshoeing to a nice peak to have a beautiful view, something like that. You're back out there, you're back exploring that same destination. 5 o'clock, back on board, time to get warm for the day. We're going to have some local food and drink. About 75% of the food on board is local. And when we're going to Antarctica, of course, we're not using things we find there. So local, when we're talking about Antarctica, is from Patagonia, so the southern area of South America. So we're going to go on board, have a nice little sample tasting, a little event, drinks and food from Patagonia at 5. At 6:30, we're going to go up to the Explorer Bar for a nice pre-dinner drink and just share all your experiences with your fellow sailors, what you did that day. And at 7:30, going to have a nice, beautiful 3-course dinner in Lindstrom. And because we're in Antarctica, in their summer, there's so much sunlight. So at 9 o'clock, we're going to go outside and have a photography lesson in the midnight sun. So with the question of, will I be bored? When I look at an itinerary like this, I don't know how anybody could be bored. You can do all this stuff. You can choose to not do any of it. You can just hang out in the hot tub, hang out at the bar. Absolutely up to you. It's your vacation. It's up to you how to spend it. But in a question of being bored, I don't see how that could happen. Here are Gentoo penguins looking graceful. Let's all take a moment and recognize that they're not always clumsy little creatures on land. They are sometimes also beautiful and quite graceful in the water. This is at Cooverville Island in Antarctica. Here are some pictures from the whale watching safaris that we do. That boat there is a great example. That's the Zodiac boats. This is in Paradise Bay, and just looking at how close they get. Again, not many humans have been down to Antarctica, so they're not super scared of people, thankfully. They shouldn't be, because we're not there to hurt them. Just another picture of how close you can get to this incredible wildlife. This is a close-up shot of what we call our expedition launch. This is how you're going to be getting off the ship and onto your actual expeditions. They launch from deck 3. So way at the beginning, when I started talking about this, I mentioned purpose-built ships. So how do we build these ships with everything in mind in terms of expedition? Purpose-built ships means that we launch from deck 3, which is almost, as you can see, at water level. So we're not launching from deck 4 or 5 with a big rickety gangway. You're walking down maybe 4 or 5 steps to get into this Zodiac boat. You're being helped on with both hands. It's the sailor's grip. Everybody has to do it, and it's a way to safely get you on board. The expedition launches on the side of the ship. So the captain, the senior officer, the expedition director, they will look at the ocean and analyze it. And they'll say, the waves are coming from this direction today. Let's park the ship so that the waves hit one side of the ship. On the other side, that's where we launch from. So there are very few waves. It's much more comfortable. It is a lot safer also, which number one priority is passenger safety and crew safety at all times. So launching from the side makes a huge difference. While you might see other ships that launch from the back where there's more movement and so on. Another really cool thing, or at least I think it's very interesting, is purpose-built ships. We don't put down an anchor because there is wildlife at the bottom of the ocean. And we don't want this giant anchor going poof and disturbing their habitat. We have something called dynamic positioning. So after the captain, the senior officer, the expedition director, after they decide the perfect position for the ship, they'll hit a button, and thanks to dynamic positioning, that ship will not move more than 1 meter in any direction. So no need for an anchor. When we think of purpose-built ships, the list goes on and on and on and on and on as to why it's important to have purpose-built ships in these regions. This is a really, really special thing. This is called an ice landing. This happened a couple weeks ago on the Fridtjof Nansen. It does not happen every time, but when the conditions are right and the conditions are safe, we do it. So all the experts on board put their heads together and figure out whether it's safe or not to do this. And I'm sure it's more technical. I'm not an engineer, but they drive the ship into a sheet of ice, as you can see in this picture. And that expedition launch, it's on the starboard side of the ship, kind of close to the aft, kind of midship. You can see it if you look carefully. They open that door, and first of all, we send out the experts first to put down flags and pylons and say, don't walk past these areas to make sure that it's safe. But then we let the passengers out, and it's an extremely special situation because this is not land. This is a sheet of ice that no one has ever stepped foot on before in the entire world. And this just happened a couple weeks ago on the Fridtjof Nansen. And like I said, when conditions are right, they're going to try to do it for the guests. But of course, keeping safety in mind first, it might not happen every time. The other place besides Antarctica, which is number 1 for passenger count, Galapagos, which is number 2 for passenger count, the other place we're starting to see a lot of interest in is Greenland. So this is our 10-day Greenland program. It starts and ends in Reykjavik, which if you are in Ontario, especially Southern Ontario, you can fly directly to Reykjavik from Toronto. And elsewhere in Ontario, you can really easily get connecting flights to do Reykjavik. It's not far. I think it's about a 5-hour flight, quite comfortable. And so it starts and ends in Reykjavik. You would sail above the Arctic Circle, above the 66th parallel, and go and explore the world's largest fjord system. And this one, again, starts around $5,500. The thrill here is that you're going beyond the Arctic Circle. You can also go beyond the Antarctic Circle if you have the time. We have some itineraries down in Antarctica that do that. This one, though, is you're going to be spending most of your time above the Antarctic Circle. So if you're going in the dead of summer, the sun will not go down. That's the special thing about the Arctic Circle. And again, because I'm a big fan of putting images to stories, here's some pictures of Greenland. And if you look carefully, those tiny wee people in the bottom left, those are the people in the kayaks. You get sort of an idea of the scale of the icebergs that you're seeing here. This is in a place called Scoresby Sound, as is this picture. Scoresby Sound I can pronounce. This is the Northern Hemisphere's most remote but inhabited community. Northern Hemisphere or Western Hemisphere? I should check that before I start saying facts that are wrong, but it's very remote. And it's called Itaqorturmiit in Greenland. And so we'll stop there and meet the community and have a nice experience there too. So why expedition cruising? It is the best way to see these destinations. It's these remote destinations, but again, it's these purpose-built ships. It's getting you there safely and comfortably to these places that are just beautiful, natural beauty. It's for that curious traveler. It's for somebody who's maybe traveled before and they want to try something a little bit different, but they're all about discovery and adventure. It is not a type of cruise where you've got an itinerary that's like, day 3, we're going to be at this port, we dock at 7, be back on board by 4. It's not structured like that. You need to expect the unexpected. In these waters, maybe one day there's the conditions aren't going to be great to do a landing, and so we'll go somewhere else. 130 years of experience tells us, oh, we can just try again a kilometer down that way. Or maybe the conditions are perfect to do a landing in spot A, but there's a pod of whales doing something super special a few kilometers that way, so we'll go there instead. It's adventure, it's exploration, it's the definition of expedition. It's expect the unexpected. It also is, like I mentioned earlier, one of the fastest growing segments in travel, the expedition cruise segment. On average, what does our passenger sort of profile look like? They take a big trip every 2.3 years, motivated, again, like I said, by active, curious adventures instead of indulgence. We are a premium brand. We have a really beautiful product. We've got great service, great food, very comfortable ships. But when I say instead of indulgence, or 2 points lower where it says we're looking for experiential luxury over material luxury, it means that our passengers want to connect with a local more than they want to connect with a butler. They want to be able to wear something like what I'm wearing, a nice dress shirt and nice pants. Not even that, you don't even have to wear that. You could put on a hoodie and jeans if you want to go to dinner. Totally fine. We don't have formal tuxedo nights. They want to take their chances on looking out the window and seeing an iceberg calve instead of taking their chances on a hand of poker or a slot machine or something. So it's a different experience. It's more about experiential luxury than it is about overindulgent material luxury. And quite often they will have a destination in mind already. Which is kind of opposite to ocean cruising, I find. Sometimes people will say to me, oh, I really want to go on this specific cruise ship, like Icon of the Seas, the new Royal Caribbean ship, which is so big and really, really cool, to be honest with you. But the ship is the destination first, and then they say, I don't care where it goes, but put me on that ship. Expedition cruising is sort of backwards to that. They say, I really want to go to Antarctica, but I don't know how to get there. And that's when I say, expedition cruise is your way to go. I want to go to Alaska. I want to go to Northwest Passage. I want to go to Greenland or Iceland or Eastern Canada to like Labrador, really far-flung places. Expedition cruise is the way to go. I mentioned this already because I got excited, but this is the buy one, get one free Galapagos. If you're not thinking of Galapagos though, that's fine. Every other destination is up to 40% off at the moment as well. So just to bring it all back to the beginning and why we started this conversation and this journey together. First thing, YHX, experts in expeditions since 1896, 130 years of experience that tell us where to go, how to do it safely. And this is why we have a plan A, B, C, D, all the way to plan Z. Made for curious travelers. It is about discovery. It is about science and education and learning and just getting your hands dirty and really going on an adventure. And the last one, leaders in mindful adventure again, doing all of this with sustainability in mind. And that's YHX. Thank you very much again, once again, for joining. And if anybody has questions, we've got a couple minutes.
So I'm going to read the ones that are in the chat.
Yeah,
so
for
the
sure.
first one is, are landings included or are they excursions at extra costs?
Great question. In Galapagos, every excursion's included. Elsewhere, the landings, yes, they are included. If you're in a Zodiac boat, they are included. If it's using special equipment, it's a bit of an extra charge. So if you are kayaking, once again, in Galapagos, kayaking is included, but all the other destinations, kayaking would be extra, snowshoeing would be extra. We actually have an excursion in Antarctica where you can go camping overnight, and you set up your tent. There is an expedition leader with you. You set up your tent, and then it's a bit eerie because the ship actually drives away. Because we don't want the light pollution, we don't want the noise pollution, we really want you to be able to take in the experience. That's also an extra charge. But great question.
You know what? It's funny you say that. I had somebody who wanted to camp overnight and did that experience. And I was like, I've come from the north,
Yeah.
I come from Northern Ontario. And I was like,
Yeah.
why would you want to? But, but teach their own. And they said it was the most amazing thing. So
yeah. And we've
absolutely.
never left anyone behind. 130 years, we always bring that ship back. So
the next question, is there any restrictions for kayaks or the smaller boats that you get off and do excursions on for, let's say, really tall people, weight restrictions, anything like that?
That's a really good question. And I'd have to do specific research to get back to you because I don't want to tell you wrong information. I do know that anyone over 6'4" may need to duck a little as they go through doorways, but no restrictions to get onto excursions. And for the Zodiacs, at the very least, no restrictions there with weight either.
Okay.
But kayaking, I will write that down and get back to you so that you can you can answer that question.
So Jolie, you can ask your consultant. We will get that information for you. But
Yeah.
at least that answers most of the question.
Yeah, absolutely. We also include jackets on our polar sail, everything except Galapagos, because you're on the equator and you don't need to stay extra warm. But we've give you sort of parka shells. It's like an outer shell that's windproof and waterproof and so on. And those jackets on board go from 2 extra small to 5 extra large, as a sort of related side note.
And on the Norway coastal cruises, can one explore on one's own when in port, or is it necessary to book excursions?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And part of the split of brands, Hurtigruten Norway does Norway Coastal, and HX does everything else. So that's a Hurtigruten Coastal question, and I don't work in that brand, so I'm not sure. But whoever asked that question, tell your consultant to reach out to me, and I will make sure that they're connected to the right person, the Ian Kivel of Hurtigruten. Her name's Lynn Wilson. She's delightful, always super happy to help. So we'll get you that answer, but it can't come from me because I don't know. Sorry about that.
Well, that's perfect. If anybody, I don't see any more questions coming in, and that's been a couple of minutes since the last one. But if you think of any more questions, everybody, please reach out to the store closest to you. If you don't work with a consultant, I know there was a few. You did get an email back, so you have my information. I think I've emailed everybody who's on here tonight with the link because there was some issues. So worst case scenario, please feel free to reply to the email I sent you, whether it was yesterday or today, and I can get you hooked up with someone who's really close to you. Oh, wait, one more. When will the store in Chatham be opening? Oh, there we go. Well, that's a question for me. And that one, you know what? It's coming really close. I know the last time I seen the pictures, it was they were painting the walls sort of thing. So definitely coming very close. However, we do have people there willing to help. And somebody's asking, how long is the sale on for, Ian?
The Galapagos sale?
Mm-hmm.
It's at least until June 30th. And it may be extended, but just in case it's not, it goes at least till June 30th.
Oh, and I see that somebody it just answered my question for me. That is wonderful. Thank you, guys. Chatham will likely open last couple of days of April or first week of May.
Oh,
So I
good.
think, yeah, so that I think is all the questions. But again, if you have anything, if you don't work with somebody and you're not sure the phone numbers or anything like that, you can reach out to me because you do have my email. Is the Galapagos sale on for 2024 or 2025?
It's for 2024 currently,
Nice.
and it's sailings between April 27th and September 25th. So it's the summer sailings for the buy one, get one free. Again, that's probably going to change soon to be extended. They just told us this week that they're going to be extending all of the dates associated with that sale. So that's why I say it's going at least until June 30th to book. And then the sailings, I think, are going to go later than that. But again, if you have an itinerary in mind or a date in mind, I can find out for you, or your advisor can.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to us because we can always send that, and you know what I mean? As soon as we know, we would let you know if you were looking for that later date that might be included in a week from now, let's say.
Yeah.
So perfect. So thank you all. Before I go too far, I am going to, I have to go under this little more button here. Stop the recording.